Let me just kick these out real quick. All right, there we go. Sorry, folks. All right, so the March 21st architecture meeting, and let me share my screen. And this is kind of a continuation of where we left off um, on the data that we needed to grab. So last time we had the UI design, that's looking good. And one of our actions was to start making sure that we're going to map the data that we need to gather over to the different role personas, and then that would fit into the UI design. So let me just share this doc with everybody. Chat. Come on, chat. So here's the doc. I'll take Sasha out. All right. So I've kind of made a table of the metadata that we're looking to gather. And then from there, we can place, like I said, categorize that into the personas, and that'll help drive the UX UI design those mock-ups that we have. And then also we'll be able to see what we have missing that we have to figure out how to go get the metadata, and then also the ability to kind of make sure that we have everything kind of checked off as far as the metadata. And based on some of this metadata, we'll be able to do like the graphing that Elizabeth showed us and stuff like that. So we could actually look at based on the number of versions that we have and the creation time and stuff like that. We could do extra things. So that's actually one of the ones I just thought of. Insert row below. We want to know the component. So that's going to be a timestamp. So I'll just kind of run through these. So right now we can, for the component domain, so all of our components live inside a domain. We can derive like a starting domain, but if folks want to have a more granular domain other than like a default one, that they'll have to give us that domain context. And same with the component name. So this could be either derived from the Git repo, or it can be supplied either way. So that's kind of like on the component side at the highest level. And then for each component, we can check to see what the license file is, the README, and those things we're currently doing. There's this thing called an owner's file, maintainers, and a security file. Those are kind of best practices of us, of how you kind of communicate with who's the owner of the project and things like that. So those things exist. We just have to, we currently don't bring them in as part of our metadata gathering. Same with like your governance doc, your contributor doc, your code of conduct. Those files aren't brought in either, but we know that they're out there. We just have to do some work to go ahead and grab them. And a lot of these files will be in either of two places. They'll either be in the project repo, or they'll be in the .github repo, I think it's called the .github repo for the organizational level. So that's kind of like the catch-all. And then this one, I'm not sure how we do it, but we have to determine if a CLA is required as well. A lot of open source projects require a CLA. That one's gonna be a question mark on how you kind of derive that. These other ones are pretty easy. You know, you just look in well-known locations for those files. But the CLA, I'm not sure how we do that, but it is something that I think we should uh, gather if we can. The Open API Swagger, we're currently driving that. The next part is repository access definitions as code. I don't know if folks are familiar with that. Let me give you an example. So here's our .github repo. Like I said, this is kind of like the catch-all repo for everything. And we have this file. This came out of the Kubernetes committer world. And basically what it does is it allows you to define all your access permissions as code, you know, who the members are, what repos you have, what access. And when you commit this, it allows you to go off and do all the setup and invites that way. So this actually, when you commit it, runs a GitHub action that goes and makes changes to your repository based on this this YAML file. And that's one of the things repository access definitions is that's a better best practice than having folks use the GitHub UI, for example. Now, I don't know if like GitLab has this type of security profiles or Bitbucket. Those things we'll have to take some deep dive into. More component stuff. What the contact. So this is basically what we call the service owner. So for this project repo, who is the contact for this component? And other things I realized that we're missing. It's like, what's the website for the project component? So for like us, for Ortelius, there's a way to derive it. I think we can put derive supplied on this, and probably derive supplied for the issue tracking. Where is the documentation? Those type of things. One of the other things I've recognized, there is a different contacts than the project owner for the security. If somebody finds a security vulnerability in your code, who you need to email about that. And then also a different email if you want to report any harassment you know, that you're getting from the open source community. Some of the things that have been happening in the just the overall world with security is two-factor authentication being enabled. So this one, I don't know if you can drive this. I think you can. That's why I left it blank on that front if we need to drive or be able to have it supplied. Other
Uh,
things that
I
were, yeah, yeah, Arvin.
I think GitHub has enabled two-factor authentication for all the users.
Well,
Like
I
you,
know that's the case on GitHub. That GitHub is forcing everybody to have two-factor, but if you're in GitLab or Bitbucket, I don't know if that's enforced yet. So that's why I kind of left it as something that we need to go out and verify. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Other things that we're able to grab from the information about when we're hooked into the build, what was the get URL, the branch, the commit, was the commit signed, the commit signature. So signing and a signature are two different things. And then lines added or deleted, that's always nice to have. That kind of falls into the Dora metric side of things. And then when there was a commit made, other things, and you'll kind of see these couple ones repeated down underneath some of the OpenSSF scorecard. But Code QL is a security scanner that GitHub has. Same with Dependabot. Renovate's a third party, plugin dependency management. Automated build I put in here because this is some of the salsa stuff. So some of the things I did not take a look at yet are some of the salsa requirements that we need to add in. So I'm going to add in a row here. And if somebody wants to take that on, that would be great. And put in the lines for salsa. What I call them, salsa steps or salsa best practices. And then other things, are you generating SBOM during the build, or if it's a post build SBOM generation? So that makes a difference in just the salsa level around your SBOM generation. So if the build tool is actually doing it, it's better than a post build because you can inject between those two steps, you can inject false data into your SBOM. And then once you have your SBOM, we'll be able to upload it. SBOM should be signed themselves. So that you know that they're valid. What was the signing method? Was it a cosign? Was it in toto? What was the signing method? And if there was a public key associated with that. And the reason why, you know that it's been signed, you know how it was signed, you know the key to that was used for the signing. We can actually go off and validate that it is a valid signature against that SBOM. So that has some other information. And I think some of this we can derive. Well, some of it will have to be supplied, like the public key will need to be supplied. And the method will need to be supplied. And same thing with the artifact. Where was the artifact published to? And that's going to need to be supplied. Was the artifact signed or not? Should be derived. And where was that other one? That will be derived. And then I kind of let after the providence and the attestation, I kind of left those open for now. We need to do a little bit of a deep dive into like in toto and some of the attestations that are out there and how we can, what data that they contain and what data we can consume, because these are really generic. So providence, when you actually do your signing, like we use cosign an attestation of our Docker images. And when you do that, you have a provenance that points back to the workflow that created that Docker image, for example. Well, we need to do some more deep dive what that means outside of the Docker world. Sonar Cube, Veracode, those are third-party tools. We can, basically we can suck those in if that information is given to us. Linting, the primary two, mega and super linters. And on this, one of the interesting things that, and this kind of falls into kind of a case, like even with like the code QL, is there's two scenarios. Is it being performed, and what are the results? So if we look at our security tooling, code scanning, let me see. Let me go over to actions. It's easier to, and this is where it gets a little trickier because like we have our own code QL workflow that runs. We have our own megalinter that runs. Those two are separate from the actual build because they can run in parallel. They don't have to be run during the build process. So this is how people typically set them up. And if you look at the megalinter one, our last one actually failed. Let me find one that worked. The megalinter will actually give you a result, saying that your linting was successful or it failed. So besides just like a linter being installed, is it working successfully and what are the results? So one of the things that you're able to do on the GitHub side is you run your linter and then it will actually upload the results. So it should show it, I think, at the summary level. Um, Here we attach the megalinter reports to let's see. I actually haven't looked at these. I always look at them online. So we have the raw logs here. So something like this, should we be pulling this information in and storing it um, with the component, or would a URL to the workflow run be enough? Those type of things, because we know off of the workflow run in the commit we can find these things. Um, so that's where I'm just kind of want to throw it out there. What should we just have maybe we start off with just like a yes no to start with, that linting is being run, and maybe down the road we start consuming that data. What are your thoughts out there?
We can show the charts like the total number versus the desired number that is successful.
Okay.
What is the easiest for the end user? I think that's really what we should be focusing on. How can we make this as automated and I don't have to do anything? I don't have to think about it. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. So I think we can go out and find these things. We can go out and find that we can drive that they're being run by looking at because you can get the logs from GitHub, for example. And same with Jenkins, you can get the logs and find out what was run, and that they produced a file, for example. And then it's just a matter of taking that data and displaying it in our UI so people they don't have to go and navigate to all of the different repositories. Because one of the things when we look at this information that we're gathering, all of this will be rolled up to an application version level. So if we go and grab all the mega linting, like Arvin said, got the success failure of of the linter run for this component version that was successful or it failed, and we track that, and then we roll it up to the application level. We can say out of your 15 components, 13 of them were successful in linting, and 2 of them had failures.
Yeah, and I think if we can do that without really putting too much work on the part of the development or DevOps team, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, there would be no work on their side. It's just us deriving that information. And same thing with like the SAST and DAST. So that's kind of like with the Sonar Cube. Sonar Cube is a kind of the SAST or Veracode. I can't remember which one it is. Does the SAST type of testing. The reason for like Sonar Cube and Veracode, why it's a supplied value, is those tools publish their results onto their own tools website. So you kind of have to know where the server is, and you can't really derive it. We can maybe do some log parsing to figure that out, but there's a lot of work to derive it, put it that way. And it's not going to be 100%. And the same thing with the SAST and the DAST results. We can probably tell that they're being run, but providing a useful link other than just that this project contains SAST testing, that here's the location for the results. We could probably do some work on that, but it's going to be pretty complicated, put it that way. And that's why I kind of left it blank for now, whether it can be supplied or derived. Does that complicate things more?
Well, if it does, we shouldn't do it.
Well, like we said, we could say yes or no that it's happening, and then being able to get into the actual data may be a second pass.
But are you talking about complicating it for us or complicating it for the end user?
If we're able to, it'll be complicated for us to pull the data in, but it will be very useful for the end user to be able to consume it. Put it that way.
So then I think that on your chart here, maybe we decide where we're going to add. Let's get something out. If it's complicated and it's going to delay a release of some of the other ones that we could get out, the low-hanging fruit, let's postpone it. So let's just take it as, I think that what we are doing in it, and we try to do too much, so we never get anything out. I'd like to see more releases and more incremental successes.
Yeah.
I think everybody would like to see that. So if there's things that are really complicated and hard to do, let's create a project for it and then figure out when it's going to be delivered and see if we can't, get some brave soul to take on that particular project. That's how I would look at this list. What's the low-hanging fruit? What can we do easy to start getting some stuff out there, and then and start showing it to the OpenSSF, and delay the other harder things. If it's going to take another 3 or 4 months, it'd be silly to postpone a release of the other easy stuff.
Yep. So a lot of this, so like the OpenSSF scorecard, these are going to give you your, I'm 8 out of 10, I'm 5 out of 10 type of thing, and then overall score. And that is, I'm currently working on that, so that should be out pretty shortly to bring in the OpenSSF scorecard pieces. Just have to do some of in the current version of Ortelius and Deploy Hub, we're going to add in new boxes and stuff to represent this data. So that's the list that I came up with. Does anybody else have any other metadata that we should be collecting that's out there?
I only have a question.
Yep.
So you were asking for the best practices for salsa.
Yes.
I went to their site, and they have a how-to salsa for developers, organizations, and infrastructure providers. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, there's going to be so in the salsa, like one of the things let me change this around.
Because that means there's 3 personas here for best practices, or for what each persona wants, right? There's an organization persona, infrastructure persona,
Yeah.
and a developer persona.
Well, what's going to happen is, let's say, like, I know one of the salsa best practices is to have an automated build.
Oh,
So-
you mean from that point of view? Okay, I don't see that kind of stuff on their site.
I think it's in the
This-
salsa diagram.
It says guiding principles, and it's like I was looking for something along that line, but I can't find that.
Maybe.
Don't trust people, trust code. That was one of them.
Yeah. So here's so like this one, 2-person review
Okay.
is submitting bad code. So that would be one of the salsa in our list.
Oh, but where did you find that? Is that in oh, it's in Ortelius. Is that in Ortelius?
No, I just went to salsa diagram and I just picked the
Oh.
image and went to the site.
Okay.
There's other websites. Oh, let's see here. A checklist of standards. Here we go. What is
Why don't they put
the
that up? Oh, they do put it on their site. Oh, there, producer source. Okay. Oh, is that their best practices? Okay.
yeah, let's see,
I
review
saw that
this.
diagram.
So they talk about if you look at, if we go back a little bit. Oops.
Why don't they just put that on the front of their page? Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't they just put a picture in the front on the overview, like this is what a typical salsa setup could look like, instead of making you like context switch ton, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
somewhere I
that's
just
cool.
saw it said a checklist. Let's try that. Salsa
Yeah.
checklist. So here it says it's let me make my screen a little bigger. It's a checklist of standards and controls to prevent tampering. Okay, so give me the checklist.
Yeah, so what does that mean? Yeah, exactly. Give me the checklist.
I mean,
I think it's written by an engineer.
yeah.
It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Elizabeth,
We're so bad
you
at
need to
that,
get-
aren't we?
Elizabeth, Tracy, please
It's so
sort
true.
these engineers out.
That's why we need ChatGPT to write our documentation.
Look at Steve. You're suffering. I'm suffering. We're all suffering here.
I know, it's so true. It is. Pathetic.
So this table of contents may be the closest. Well, it doesn't really give me the checklist.
That was the point, yes. They
It's
want to
giving
keep you
you-
guessing.
Yeah.
Artifacts and checklist.
Oh,
Oh, this is a nice checklist.
Guys.
Jesus. What not to
Product
do for we must just remember this, what not to do for our documentation, right? Yeah.
Our documentation probably looks very similar to this since I wrote most of it.
No, I haven't come across it so bad, Tracy, I promise.
Good. If you
Don't
find
worry.
something that should be fixed, please tell me.
No, don't worry. I should raise a PR and fix it myself.
I
Fix it
shared
worse.
the link. It contained the levels, but not the checklist.
Yeah, it's got the level.
This is probably the closest right here. This.
Sorry to ask in this meeting, but I thought, Steve, I'm going to ask if I pick this up, I was going to ask you anyway for your help and Tracy's help.
Don't ask for mine.
Let's
Tracy,
do
the ChatGPT. Oh wow.
Man, there's not a day that goes by that I don't touch Chat GPT. I've become so
Yeah, me
dependent
too.
upon it. Didn't take
Sometimes
long, did it?
No, I use it too. But sometimes I have a good laugh at it. It's like, are you really suggesting that? That is the worst piece of advice I've ever read.
Well, the free version is that the data is about 3 years old, so you have to keep that in
No.
mind.
I have the paid version and I still got
Oh,
the
you
worst
do?
advice ever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I've had it generate some stuff for me, and I'm like, I don't think I would say that.
I'm like, oh, I don't think I should do that in my architecture or whatever. Or, you know, I just went back to reading documentation. That's also why I switched from Google to a different search engine. I got so tired of getting such rubbish. The search engine has gone downhill.
Oh yeah,
I use Kaji now. I actually pay for it. Once I paid for it because we just got so sick and tired of getting useless rubbish. Yeah. And no ads. Yeah. It's so good. KAGI.
You are such a software gadget person.
I'm terrible, Tracy. I know.
KG search
Yeah,
engine.
Yeah. I'll stick it in the chat for you.
yeah. So this is not very useful.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
I mean, it's like design security controls and architectures. Okay, how does that help when I'm,
Yeah.
in
So this is the thing about Salsa. It is very high level, right?
Is it high level? Is it meant to be? Okay. Okay, that's a good point. Cool.
It is it doesn't say how to do anything. It only says what you should achieve.
But can't they put something like, here's an example of how you could do a Salsa implementation in this type of environment, right? Just like scenarios, right? That would be the easiest way to show people.
So here's the closest.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Sure. Where did you find that? Security Google blog. Oh, because is it from? Are they part of Google, or were they part of Google? Or
Google is writing Salsa, but Google is writing Salsa. Google is the major contributor to Salsa.
No, I thought I'd just take a look during the meeting, right, and see. Oh, let me see if I can do this, right? And then I realized there wasn't anything around it, so that's why I asked. It's just like, well, what is this information that we should put in there? Oh, okay, so that.
The simple fact, I always get annoyed. Go back to that.
Yep, hang on. Let me just paste this in here.
That it says that you're supposed to, your build should be scripted. To me, that's, I don't know. I guess we did open make software for so long. It's like, really? Your build shouldn't be scripted. We should start generating builds. Why does anybody want to sit there and make a code a make file or a Python script? We can generate it.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, are you using version control?
Are your builds being executed on a local machine, or are they being executed on in an isolated area? That's another one of them. Is it locked down? Can somebody change your build environment? Is it reproducible? I don't know why it's got an O there. Probably because people don't know how to.
Some builds are reproducible, some aren't. So like a Java build isn't reproducible at this point because it puts like the timestamp in the class files.
Right. So it doesn't have anywhere in here where it says build should be comparable.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
It
good
should be
one.
comparable. So if that way, you know, if how reproducible it is, because you can compare
Yeah.
what the changes are.
And how do you know? How do you know if it? What happens if
And
it's out of your
like
control?
this
The
one
builds, like,
under
isn't some of it out of your control?
like under common security, okay, what
What security?
what an access and super users, what does that actually mean? I'm sure in this doc.
There
Okay.
are some, well, because I've read through this before, there is some more, there's some more, there's deeper conversations, but it's still all very high level. It's all kind of it's standards based. And
They
how
don't
to
say how
implement
to
it
do
is,
it.
they don't say how to do it.
Yeah.
They don't want to say how to do it. I've been on some of those calls, and that is not their
They
goal, is
don't.
to say how. They want to say
Okay.
what you should do, what you should achieve in this. How do you create a clean build? And when
Steve,
I
where do
go
you
and
want
look
this
at
filled
this,
in? Oh yeah.
So
Sorry,
this is going
Casey.
to go into, let me close that tab. So in this doc right here, salsa best practices, like I just added automated build. So
This is quite a lot of stuff to add in.
yeah, and that's the way, if I get,
Oh, do you just want a high level like
yeah.
source, build, provenance, common? And do you want
So
the little? Do you
we
want?
would do salsa best practices, and then like, let me insert an example here for you. I just do like 3 spaces, source, version controlled.
Okay.
And then the next line would be source, verified history, and so on and so forth.
so Sasha, you know what would be a very useful thing, since you're the technology gadget man? Go take a look at what Guac is doing and bring it back to us.
Okay, guac. I
'Cause
love
they're so,
guacamole. It's the most delicious thing on earth.
It is. It is the most delicious, and they needed some guac for their salsa.
yeah. So
So guac is supposed to be a dashboard for salsa.
yeah.
No,
It's
I
like a
remember
dependency.
I remember a while back you asked me to investigate integrating this and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just see
I
what
haven't forgot.
guac is doing.
I haven't. Okay, I haven't forgotten.
I saw. Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't know how relevant, how urgent. Well, okay, how priority is this? So do we need to? Where does this fit into Ortelius now?
Well, this is the data that we're going to be gathering.
Yeah.
So, like, if you look at, so like one of the things, if you implement scorecard, you will get a what is scorecard checks? Here it is. So what I did was on this part here underneath the OpenSSF scorecard, when you run scorecard, it's going to go off and run all these checks.
Mm.
So by implementing one single thing here, we're able to get a bunch of results. It's a bang for your buck type of scenario. So that's the same thing with the salsa piece. So in the higher level salsa best practices, we need a list. If you're following the salsa best practices, is your source code version, your source version controlled? So we know that if it's in Git, we can say yes. So we can derive value and say that you've achieved, out of the 15 salsa best practices, you've achieved 6 of them. Because we can derive that stuff. Now, like Tracy is saying, Guac may go off and do a bunch of work for us, just like Scorecard did. So we may be able to make a call out to Guac, and Guac can return us all the details. So for us
But I think
to,
what Guac is doing though, is doing something with dependencies. It's dependency graphing.
Yes,
And I
that,
don't
that rings a
understand
bell
why
for me
that's,
too.
I'm trying to understand why that's useful. And Arvind or Elizabeth, or any of you, if you want to dig down and try to understand the value proposition that Guac has.
That's a great thing to do, Tracy. That's cool. That's really
I
we
cool
just-
stuff to
joined.
go and check out.
Yeah, just figure out what the
I-
value proposition is. What is it? How is it benefiting your builds by understanding your dependency graph? And that's what I believe
Yeah, 'cause
it's intended to do.
I
don't
joined one
there
of
plenty
their
of tools that do
meetings.
that? Ah. Oh, sorry, Mohammed.
Yeah, I joined one of their meetings, and they are currently like implementing their own front end part.
yeah, they have their own front end for dependencies, and it's that Netflix Death Star that they're generating. And it's,
Ah,
And that's what I don't understand has benefit, because we went down that road and we're like, this is not useful. It's too much information.
nah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. There must be something. They got $8 million to build it.
$8 million. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They just the Kasari who started doing Guac, who brought it up, just got an $8 million funding to make a commercial version of it.
Wow,
Who
it's
gave them the
152 million
funding?
South African rand. You could get yourself you could probably buy the Western Cape with that.
Tracy, why we are not going for the funding part?
Oh, believe me, I have been going for the funding part.
and
Like,
it's who you know, and when you've come from Google, anybody that creates an open source project from Google and they go for funding, because you used to work at Google, you get it's an easier path.
have we gone for the Y Combinators?
Have we gone for what, Arvin?
Y Combinators.
Yeah,
Y
we
combinators?
but yeah, you can get funding, but I think then people want sort of something back in return, and you got extra pressure, right? I mean, it's quite a
Well,
quite a
Deploy Hub is looking at going after funding. We definitely are.
okay.
We've always,
I don't know how
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
I guess there may be some reconfiguration of Deploy Hub that we need to do and move me out of it, because women organizations only get about 2% of all of the funding, all of the venture capital money in all industries. And I haven't seen a single project coming out of the Linux Foundation that is being managed by a woman that has gotten funded. And it's just the brutal truth, it's just
That's
what it
not
is.
good, eh?
And
No,
looking
that's
at the
not
Y
good.
the Y Combinator, only 3% of applicants get accepted.
So we definitely are we're looking for more funding so that we could have more contribution coming from funding out of Deploy Hub into Ortelius. That is something that we are working on. That's why we brought on Brian Dawson. He's helping to work on that.
Yes.
So Arvin, know that we are making an effort to do that.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. Getting funding is hard.
Yep.
It's really hard.
And one of the things is and that's why we're going through this, the metrics, to ensure that we are gathering the data that's important to folks, and that we're gathering data and consolidating it like no other product is. And that's going to be our differentiator.
Right. So, and what the Kasari did right was they focused on a project that is being funded by a big company, right? Google. Google's super excited about their salsa, and they got a lot of press about it. And then Kasari said, well, we'll build the dashboard for it. And that's kind of what kicked it in, even though we've already had a dashboard that we could. So that's why I'm pushing for us to be a dashboard for the OpenSSF scorecard. They get a lot of, that gets a lot of attention, but nobody's really building a centralized repository of that information. You have to go, and if you were a CISO officer and you wanted to look at open source security in your organization, you would have to know what open source you were using and then go to
Every
GitHub
repo
to go
and
look at every repo and look and decide it. Now, what we can do is bring the
Whoa.
SBOM information in and then
Yeah.
give every application, every logical application, even in a decoupled environment, the scorecard values. So that's how we're going to get more attention, is if we can do some hard work around some of these beloved OpenSSF projects, because there's definitely people are looking at those kinds of tools.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Guac now, and I'm like, but Ortelius does a lot of this already.
I know, and they haven't even, they're just now getting a beta out. Theirs is, and they don't version any
Yeah.
of that. They're not, they're not tracking it. So
Like we can track this log for shell. I mean, that's always our example.
yeah.
It's funny.
So I've been working on, like I said, in our OpenSSF scorecard. It's a work in progress. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm reading we take the SBOM, we load it into our database. So we know all the packages that people are consuming. And let's see if this thing kicks off. I'm looping through all those packages and determining if that package actually has a scorecard associated with it.
Oh, that's what it stands for. Graph for Understanding Artifact Composition. Just in case anyone else didn't know what guac meant. It's not just
Yeah.
avocado with lots of lemon juice and other
Yes.
lovely things.
So what we're going to be able to do is, in this release I'm working on, is to be able to take your open source package that is in your SBOM and go out and determine what your OpenSSF scorecard is.
Uh-huh.
So we'll be able to, now one of the other things that I figured out yesterday is if a scorecard doesn't exist, so let's say like this one here, there's no scorecard available, you can actually submit, you can run the scorecard locally and generate a score for that repository even if you don't own it.
Wow. Okay.
So which means
that-
we can start, based on all these SBOMs and packages that we're collecting, we can start generating scorecard scores for them and making sure that everything is up to date.
Yeah, that's very
So
cool.
we'll be able to have this massive aggregation of all the SBOM scores and all that data, not only at the component level, but all the way up to the application level.
That's why I was going to say just earlier on how powerful Ortelius is becoming,
Yep.
and to understand that where it's going it's like really amazing. Where
So
it's
I'm
come
gonna
from
run-
and where it's going, it's incredible, man.
we just need to start building adoption.
I'm
That's our
adopting it at
biggest-
home on my pies. Don't worry.
Adoption
Sorry,
is
Anna,
the
that
thing that we lack. We need to get some adoption out there. And the reason why I keep saying we got to do this stuff that makes it easy, what we want to do is really focus on probably the Jenkins community, because they're sort of right now our sister project at the CDF. We
Okay.
should be looking at how we can make it really easy to become the security, kind of the DevSecOps extension to Jenkins.
Yeah.
And that will,
I mean,
and
this
make
is
sure
what-
that
okay.
everything's simple, really simple to download, which Sasha, you've done a lot of work on, simple to use the SaaS version, which we're working on trying to get a new SaaS
Yeah.
offering out there. So there's some work that we have yet to do. And Steve, is there anything that you need help on for that, getting the Ortelius version running in the Deploy Hub environment so we can have an environment again?
It's currently running. It's just branded with the Deploy Hub one. I just have to go in and change the logo.
Let's get that done so we can start you know what, we should be able to, anybody should be able to go to the Ortelius site and go to log in and see all of the all the Ortelius data running in Ortelius.
Yeah.
So-
So what will happen is, let me share my screen again.
I mean, that's why I'm going on this mission, to build a local environment for myself so that I can play with it locally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
and
can
you shouldn't
understand it
have
better.
to. Not everybody's going to be willing to do that. You know, most people that when they want to go check it out, they just want something simple.
So one
Oh,
of the
yeah, it's
things
also
that
true.
is, if you go out to the Deploy Hub website and you sign up for the free version, what we've, oops, use my other login.
Steve, did that guy ever come back to you on the?
No, not
Did you
yet.
ever get hold of him? Oh, okay.
I gotta get that on my list to follow up with them. So one of the things we did was we changed the login, so you could log into your own project, or if you log into the open source domain. So if I log into the open source domain, you can see all of Ortelius being built. So we have version 10, and if I change all of our entries, we have 11 being built as well. So if you go in, and because this is at the open source level, you can. So the domain that you log into is this open source domain, and then you can see all the open source projects that are out there. So Ortelius is one of the current ones that's being published out there. So this version of the component is probably an older version of the application. I had some CVEs in it
Okay.
that have probably been fixed in the later version. So you could actually go out and navigate based on the domain, you know, which projects you want to look at. Right now, we just have the OpenSSF Ortelius domain out there, but we'll be able to add in other domains as well. And one of the things that we were talking about, Tracy and I were talking about, was, let's say if we look at these packages that we're dependent upon. So like this nan git package, we should be able to monitor this GitHub repo and get notified through an XSS a feed, the XSS reader feed, to know that they've published something, and that they've published something that we should be able to go out and grab all and create a component version based on that new artifact that was built. So we can start automatically adding these open source projects into the domain structure and be able to start tracking those passively as part of our process. So what that means is we'll start collecting more and more data and more information about every single package that's out there. And that's where our list starts coming from. You know, we'll be able to derive a bunch of stuff. But look, for example, the project contact. When we go out and passively start listening to a project, a project for its updates, we won't necessarily know who the project contact is for that. That's where we would have to get that supplied to us in some fashion. Right now, we're using a component TOML file. There is that security insights YAML file that working group wants to roll out, but that, I think, is going to be so security focused, it's not going to give us other information that we need about, like, who's a harassment contact. You know, where's the project documentation at? Those type of things I don't think are going to be in that spec, because they want it to be security focused, which just isn't good enough.
Yeah, that's true. There's very security folks, so you're not going to get that info. I know with like I was doing this thing with Cast Highlight, and they had a way of that was for migrating, but it had a thing where it automated the emails out to the relevant people in the company, and they would just have to fill something in and send it back, and then it would update the information from that. I don't know if that is something you could integrate into Ortelius somehow. That's how they gathered the information around the application and who owned it and who's the project owner and the manager or the project, all that kind of stuff, all that, yeah,
That may be
organizational stuff.
that may be the way to solve that problem is to do a notification with a, like you said, a little introduction. Maybe it's something like in a PR that we create saying that we want to add more value to your thing, and either email it to them or do a PR in
something like that
in their repo.
I know people. There's lots of articles you've seen about email, how it's going to die, but I don't think so. People use their email, right? Email is very good.
I use it.
Yeah, no, it's not going to die because email
People
is a
use
very
it-
good way of formal discussion, right? And saying this is what I said and this is what you said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get away from it. It's brilliant for that.
And
Well,
like
let's
you
just
said,
say people used to
there's
say
some,
the
the mainframe
mainframe was going to die. Yeah, it's never going to go away.
Yeah, it's not going to go away. And like this thing about AI taking people's jobs or code, it's not going to happen, man.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
I don't believe it is.
Yeah, so
No, not
Sasha,
really.
can you open an issue in the Ortelius repo about that using email or a PR to
It could
gather?
even be, gather information. Recon information, or what do you call it? Organizational information.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually think I have an example if I can find it to show you.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Cast Highlight, because I'm a bit of a nutter. I record everything I do. I call it my second brain. Otherwise, I don't see what's the point. What's the point of learning something if I don't write it down, right? Otherwise, I'm just wasting that opportunity in that time.
Yeah, it'd be great to know how they did it. So if you could attach a screenshot or a doc to the issue, that would be very helpful. I think that's a great solution because when you have
it's evidence, right? We're an evidence store, so we need the evidence of who manages your evidence. Who the contact people
now the tricky part is knowing the initial email to send to, but we could.
Yeah, but as long as you find even if you just find a CTO, I mean that's not too hard, right?
Yeah.
Or even just some sort of manager. Yeah. Like we need to find the FBI department that we need to speak to, so you guys can fill in this information.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, let me.
Hey guys, it was great. I got to jump.
I got to go too. Rob,
Okay.
do you want to stick around and we can go over your questions?
Yeah, I would love to.
All right, let me stop recording.